Hi, everyone. This is the Chapter 3A test, the reading test, right? And we're translating sentences. So as we learn more and more Latin, you'll have to manage more and more endings, longer sentences, etc. So the stronger you are with them early, the easier it will be to deal with more complicated sentences later. All right. Remember that a lot of what we've talked about in these early chapters is this transitive sentence pattern. Okay, and what that is going to be is the basic idea of subject, verb, object, at least from an English word order standpoint, and then in Latin, generally subject, object, verb, though that can obviously change because Latin uses endings, rather than word order to indicate the meaning of words. Okay, so the most important thing when you're dealing with sentences is to kind of go through it word for word and think about what form it's going to be. Now, when the sentences are relatively simple, that should be relatively straightforward. As the sentences grow more complex and as we learn more cases and endings, there'll be more and more ambiguity introduced. The ambiguity is difficult, but it's certainly not insurmountable. The most important thing is recognize that it's not making sense, that it's not working out, and just go back and try again. It's okay to interpret an ending incorrectly. What you don't want to do is let that incorrect interpretation turn into a mistranslation because you didn't go back and try again. Okay? In any case, let's go through the sentences and see what we have. So, pueri, puelleque, clamant. All right. Remember that conjunctions like que, conjunctions are words that join things together, like words. Que is going to mean and remember that it's going to be attached, I should say, the word before the word to which it's attached. So in other words, in English, a good way to remember this is peanut butter jelly que. All right, so peanut butter and jelly, peanut butter jelly que. So the que goes in between the two words in a row before the que word. All right. So what that tells us is that whatever pueri is, case-wise, puelli is going to be as well. And you won't need this so much now because you don't know a lot of endings, but you will as you sort of get more endings involved or you learn more endings. So you might know sort of the Venn diagram. Let me see if I can do a better circle. All right, that's better. Hey, look at that. All right, and so when you've got endings that can be different things and you've got a conjunction involved, there'll be that Venn diagram, that shared part that overlaps in terms of case. So in other words, that I ending, and again, some of these you don't know now, but you will later, can be the genitive singular, all right, and the nominative plural. All right, that AE ending can be the genitive singular, the dative singular, and the nominative plural. All right, so immediately we can get rid of dative singular because it is not shared. Because of the conjunction, they can't be the same thing. Now, for this particular pair, they can both be genitive singular or nominative plural. And when that happens, we just have to use context. All right, the clamant has an NT ending, which means the subject's plural. Pueri and puelli can be nominative. It would be weird to have a genitive, which you don't know yet, but we'll learn that down the road, kind of floating without anything to go with it. So pueri and puelli is going to be nominative. All right, so they're both going to be the subjects. Pueri, a nominative with that I ending. Puelli, a nominative with that AE ending. And clamant, of course, is going to be the verb. Okay? All right, sentence number two. So templum deorum implete. Right now, you might notice right off the bat that deorum is one of the endings from this chapter. All right, that orum. So you've got to kind of make a mental note of that. Now, genitives, which deorum is, are always going to be associated with another noun. Well, I won't say always, but most of the time. They will be associated with another noun. So anytime you see a genitive, your first thought should be, with what noun am I going to translate this genitive? There really is only one other noun in the sentence, and that's templum. So we'll, of course, check to make sure it makes sense, but there's a very good chance that deorum, the genitive, is going to be read with templum. All right, watch out for implete. It's a form that we've learned, but not that common. All right, what is that ETE ending going to be? That's the imperative. Remember, the imperative issues a command, all right? And technically there's an understood you, in this case you plural because of the TE, there's an understood you for the subject. Because you, or second person, is the subject, that means the templum, which, because it's neuter with that um ending, can be either nominative or accusative. That templum is going to be accusative. We know it can't be nominative because the ETE in impleta tells us that that's an imperative and that that has a you understood subject. All right, so impleta, templum deorum. All right, number 3, remember that ne tells us that it's a yes-no question. So optasne domini consilium. And note that I read it slightly differently because it is that question. We would, of course, say it the same way we would a question in English. Optas has an ending there, that S ending, that gives you the subject, that tells you who the subject is. Remember that the personal endings of verbs indicate the subject. Each personal ending corresponds to a different subject. So make sure to know what that S ending corresponds to. All right, now, optasne domini consilium, all right, we know that domini isn't accusative, all right, it could be nominative by ending, but optas is not plural, which domini would have to be if it were nominative, and that S ending isn't third person, so domini can't be the subject of optas. That means it can't be nominative. That eliminates nominative plural as an option for the I ending on domini. The only thing then we're left with is genitive singular. And remember, as we said, genitives will always have to go with a noun. There's only one other noun in the sentence, and so that's going to be consilium. And again, consilium, like templum in number 2, can be either nominative or accusative. In this case, it will have to be accusative for the same reasons, that optas isn't third person, right? So consilium can be the subject. It can be accusative, so it's going to be the direct object. So optasne consilium domini. All right, number 4. So amicos. All right, good news. OS can pretty much only be the accusative, so that's a relatively easy form to identify. All right, iuvare is that infinitive, that RE form of the verb is going to be the infinitive. Remember, that's translated to verb in English, and infinitives have to go with another verb. Infinitives cannot stand by themselves. So anytime you see an infinitive, you have to ask yourself, what's the verb upon which this infinitive is depending for its translation? And those verbs that use infinitives, that have infinitives following them, will mean something that can take an infinitive. So debemos I should say, means something that can have a to come after it. So make sure you know what that is and translate accordingly. All right. Also, most of course tells you who the subject of debemos is. All right. Number 5. De imperium turbi monstrant. All right. So if I'm going through and thinking about endings, as we saw with number 1, both the I ending and the AE ending can be nominative. Now, there is no conjunction, so they're not working together. I have to figure out which one each of these words is, okay? Generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, the subject will come first. So there's a better chance that D is going to be my nominative. Monstrant, with that NT ending, that confirms that I'm going to have a plural subject, but both D and turbi, if they're nominative, are going to be plural, so that doesn't necessarily help me. When there is ambiguity like this, the only thing that will tell you what's what is context and or what makes sense, right? So does it make better sense with D as the subject, or does it make better sense with turbi as the subject? Whichever one isn't the subject is going to be the genitive, going with likely imperium, since they are right next to imperative. So it's either D imperium, turbi monstrant, or D monstrant, imperium turbi. All right, and there is one that's going to make a lot more sense than the other. Number 6. All right, so silva virum feminamque terret. Similar to number 1, we have that conjunction que. Conjunctions are going to join like things because it is attached to an accusative. That means that it's going to be joined, feminam is going to be joined to another accusative, which is going to be virum. So sometimes it's a good idea, if you can, to bracket those things to let yourself visually know that those are a single unit. So silva terret virum feminamque. Number 7, animum natura viri dat. Animum, with that um ending, is going to be the accusative. Natura, with that a ending, is going to be the subject. And then that leaves viri with that I ending, which of course can be nominative plural, as having to be a genitive. It is further confirmed that viri is genitive by the fact that dat is singular. If viri were nominative, it would have to be plural. All right, finally, number 8, all right, vocate o puellae agricolas. Now, note the commas, all right, and the O. Anytime you have a noun set off by commas with an O, it's going to be vocative. Vocative is the case of direct address. So the puellae are being addressed directly. You don't have to, but it's oftentimes easier in English to translate the vocative at the beginning of the sentence. So puellae, vocate agricolas. Vocate is an imperative. We talked about that in number 2. So just like number 2 with that TE ending, vocate is an imperative. You don't need an imperative with a vocative, and you don't have to have a vocative with an imperative, though most commonly they do go together. When there is a vocative, it's often, though not always, with an imperative. All right. So vocate, as we said, the imperative, and agricolas, that a ending, is the accusative ending, the direct object. All right, that's it for this particular test. Please be in touch if you have any questions.